video lesson is to talk you through how to complete part 2 of the WPA number 5, paper number 2 process doc. So you are ready for this video if you have already completed part 1. Remember, there's a video for part 1 if you were not in class or if your class did not meet to complete part 1, but you need part 1 completed before you're ready to move on to part 2. So part 2 is how to turn our brainstorming and our listing into an outline. It will be more than this, so please don't just see this and think that's what it should look like, because we're going to develop this and add to this as well. So here, we are working with this Johnnie Walker example, but before we get started with that, actually, I want to remind you in the assignment sheet for paper number 2, if you scroll down to the very last page, here you have the paper structure section. So this section tells you what the intro will do, what the body paragraphs will do, ideas for what to include in the body paragraphs, and the conclusion as well. So this helps you think of sort of what goes into each of these body paragraphs. It's also a really good idea to review the student samples that I've provided for you, because those can help you think of how to organize the body of your paper as well. So for this one, we're focusing only on the body paragraphs, but I wanted to mention too what the other paragraphs will do. So the intro of the paper will provide some context. The conclusion will be where you offer your overall social commentary. But for now, we're focusing on just ordering and structuring the body paragraphs. So we're only going to be outlining the body paragraphs today. Each body paragraph will analyze a different element of the ad and then work to explain how those elements all connect to the ad's overall manipulative purpose. So each body paragraph would be focused on a different element of the ad. Maybe one body paragraph would be focused on the overall scene. So I would talk about all the different foods. I might talk about the women in this one. Oh, here I have a different paragraph for women, however, so maybe this paragraph would focus on the flavors in the foods. I might have a different paragraph where I talk about the colors and mention some of those specific colors and what is suggested by those colors, or what sort of vibe or atmosphere those colors give. I want to talk about the women and their sexuality, and that's being portrayed by their poses. I want to talk about their clothing. I want to talk about what they look like. I want to talk about the man in the middle, and I want to talk about the slogan, right? So you may have more things or fewer things than this, but for now, this is a list, right? It's a list. I just wrote it down in whatever order they came to mind. But now we want to think about turning the list into an outline and how we're going to progress through each of these body paragraphs, each of these main points. So here are some tips for considering how you're going to outline the body paragraphs. Number 1, consider your readers. Your readers are someone who they haven't analyzed the ad, so they may not be very familiar with the ad. They may not have actually seen the ad. They may not have the visual of the ad unless you choose to include it. So with that in mind, you wouldn't want to start with a very small detail first. You wouldn't want to start sort of in the little corner of the ad and point out something very small and minuscule. Instead, you want to start with the paragraphs that will give sort of an overall vision of the ad, or that are the biggest or most noticeable things in the ad first. So those will help orient your readers to the overall imagery of the ad before you start to get to the paragraphs where you discuss the smaller things or the little bitty things. So for example, if you're going to analyze the main character in the ad and it's mainly a picture of a person, you probably want to do that before you talk about like the color scheme. Because if you just start talking about the color scheme, well, colors of what, right? They won't have a sense of the overall ad yet. So then when you're considering organizational patterns, you might want to start with the most obvious things about the ad, the things you think other people would notice first, and then get to the least obvious things. So the little details that you have noticed because you've spent a lot of time working on this ad. You may want to move in a visual or spatial way. So you may want to start with the body paragraph of where your eye would go first, like the main character, and then sort of zoom in or zoom out from there. Or you may want to move sort of left to right. Maybe if the main focus of the ad is on the left, you could start there with your first body paragraph talking about what's over there, and then move sort of to across the page. Or if your ad is sort of organized top to bottom, maybe the main focus of the ad is on top, then you could sort of move towards the bottom. That will give a logical sense of progression as well. Or you could sort of build toward the most problematic thing. So maybe you start with just what the ad looks like overall, but then you start to point out things that you find a little bit concerning, and you get more and more concerning as you go so that your ad builds towards something. When you're considering how to link paragraphs together too, you want to think about not jumping around in the ad, but things that are related to each other. So maybe first you talk about the person and then you talk about the color scheme because you want to talk about the color of the clothes the person is wearing. So how do things sort of connect to each other within the ad can help you organize as well. So here we go. We've got this ad as our example, and we have I've put these in a particular order, right? So here's my thesis. The Johnnie Walker ad where flavor is king features a scene of lush excess associating the liquor with an aristocratic hedonistic lifestyle to exploit the consumer's desire for social superiority. So I've put them in an order now. First, I want to talk about the overall scene because I want to give the readers a sense of like overall what is in the ad, right? So I'm going to mention all of the excess, how it's very crowded. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Then I think it makes sense to talk about the colors because the colors are throughout the whole scene, right? So I want to talk about what's in the scene and then move to the colors of the imagery. Then the women, because the women are a part of that overall scene, right? So that to me makes sense of where to go next. And then the man. I've decided to focus on the man next because I don't think he's actually the most noticeable part of the ad. I want to use the man to sort of talk about, and I think it connects to the slogan a little bit. So I've saved him for later because I want to describe the scene and then talk about how the man seems to be controlling the scene. If I hadn't described the scene first, I would say he's controlling the scene, but then what scene, right? I haven't provided my analysis of that yet. So that's why I decided to save him for last. I could have started with the man and then sort of zoomed out, and that might be a logical way to progress as well. So it's your choice. You want to think about what you want to focus on and the way that these different elements will connect to each other best and progress towards the end. Then I'm going to talk about the slogan. So for me, the slogan can help me wrap up my commentary on everything else. We've got the word king, sophistication, royalty, aristocraticness, and we associate kings, which is all the food, all the women, right? The beautiful house, the relics of ancient days. So I want to talk about that last because I think it will help me wrap everything up together. So then for your WPA number 5, you want to take your list and turn it into sort of a rough outline first. We're not going to stop here though, because I want this to be a full sentence outline because that's going to help us move to body paragraphs much easier. So first I want to take my thesis and I want to put it at the top of my outline because that's going to help remind me to stay on topic. We can't analyze anything in the paper that doesn't relate to the topic and to the thesis because the thesis has to unify the paper. So I'm going to take my thesis from up here and I'm going to move it down here. This is the order I want my paragraphs to move in, and now I'm going to turn them into complete sentences. So here, instead of the dash, I'm going to phrase it as an actual sentence. Using imagery of excess. All right, so again, this is a draft, but it's a complete sentence. The scene is full, maybe I want to say the overall scene is full of flavors and foods using imagery of excess. And then underneath that, I want to say what are the details there, right? The body paragraph will include details, so what will I include in this paragraph? So I know I want to talk about the fruits and nuts. I know I want to talk about the large whiskey bottle. I know I want to talk about the background being aristocratic, right? And then I'm thinking, do I need a separate paragraph for the background? Because this isn't really related to flavors and foods, right? So as I'm going through this, maybe I'm deciding, I need maybe the background would work better here, right? So the colors and the backdrop, maybe that could be combined in one paragraph. But this develops as you go, right? That's the point. I know I don't want to mention the women too much, but I want to mention that they're there, and then I'll talk about them in more detail here, right? So again, you know, like where do the details come? How does this all work out? So I want to talk about rich, deep reds and greens and blues. I want to talk about the background being dark paneled walls, you know, like large quality art. But then this, remember, I want to be a complete sentence so that I can easily turn it into a topic sentence. So maybe like the background and scenery is rich, deep colors, adding to the imagery of abundance and sophistication. So just make it a complete sentence, right? Make each of these a complete sentence, and then we're going to revise them and make them into topic sentences as we go. This one, I'm going to say the scene is full of beautiful women in sexual poses. And here I have, you know, like how that works, right? Just from this column, I'm just going to connect this to make a complete sentence for each element of the ad. So the scene is full of beautiful women in sexual poses, adding to the hedonistic suggestion or message of the ad. I think I like message better, so I'm going to revise as I go. So maybe I want to talk about the woman in front stirring the honey pot. I want to talk about her body language. I want to talk about the woman in the far left. I want to talk about their clothing of the women. So here I'm just like, what will go into this paragraph? So I would then change each of these to topic sentences. And again, I just pulled this from the chart. So the chart would probably say something like the man. And then over here, I would have body language is mysterious. So I'm going to take what I have there, get it in my outline, and then turn it into a topic sentence. And then under each topic sentence, you're going to have several details of the ad that relate to the topic sentence that you have there. So in part 2, I should see this. I should see the thesis that you've taken from up here and moved down. I should see a bullet point for each main element of the ad that you want to be a body paragraph. Or if you like number 1 and then A, B, C, if you like to do that, that's great. However you want to organize it, whatever would work for you. So each element of the ad that you're going to use for a body paragraph as a topic sentence. So what are you pointing out and what are you saying about it? How are you connecting that to the overall thesis? And then underneath each key element of the ad, the details from the ad that you're going to point out in that. So it should look something like this. Please let me know if you have any questions. And once you finish part 1 and part 2, you can click submit on WPA number 5 and you're ready to start drafting.